We heard Dan Perry, the former chief of the Associated Press, who's covered the Middle East and Europe and Africa, making the suggestion that the Netanyahu coalition feels that it has absolutely no option except to carry on the conflict in the way that it's going. What's your assessment of his analysis?
Well, perhaps it's true, but doesn't make it right. Certainly Netanyahu has told us from day one that this is going to be a long and painful war. And we understood also from American-Israeli reports that the Biden administration has gotten its own report about Netanyahu having a vested interest, a personal vested interest in prolonging the war so that he could have better political chances moving forward in continuing to be a prime minister. So it's not necessarily in Israel's interest for this war to continue, but it's certainly in Netanyahu's interest for this war to be prolonged, because this political criminal, come war criminal, right, wants to continue to be sort of a wartime leader, right, putting on the military fatigue and you know, talking about threats against Hamas and defeating Hamas, while we see the disastrous results of his policies, not only on October 7, but even today. He continues with this logic that the only way they can save Israeli captives is through military means. But we've seen Israeli captives failing to liberate the Israeli policies failing to liberate Israeli captives, and that only diplomacy succeeded in freeing some of them, while the continuation of the war is actually leading to the Israelis killing Israeli captives. So his entire logic has already proven to be a big failure, and yet he persists in it because of his own ideological and personal interest. But to the more important point about Netanyahu and what he's doing and what he wants to be rewarded for, and that's the point I kind of take exception to, but not only from the former Associated Press bureau chief, but there's a general sense from anyone who's sitting in Tel Aviv or sitting in Washington or London nowadays. They keep talking about what's good for Israel, right? But what about what's good for the Palestinians? They keep talking about Israel's right to defend itself on October 7. What about October 8 and 9 and 11 and 12 and 13? What about November 1st, 2nd, 3rd? What about December 1st, 2nd? What about the last 70 days, right? They talk about the need now for the Saudis to rejoin or join the Abraham Accords. So Israel's war crimes in Gaza should be rewarded by Arabs normalizing relationship with Israel. That's the answer for Israel's war crimes? Not The Hague, but Riyadh rejoining or joining the Abraham Accords? It's kind of absurd when you think about it, right? But yet we go in this direction whereby, well, if October 7 happened, it could happen also from the West Bank. Hence, the idea of Palestinian sovereignty could never be considered. But what about Palestinian freedom and dignity and liberty and independence? Why are we always thinking of Israel? Okay, so if October 7 was a message to the Israelis that they couldn't be secure while they're occupying another people, okay, so maybe they should end their occupation. Now, what about the Palestinians? Again, if October 7 sends the message to the Israelis that they're not secure, what do the last 70 days send the message about the Palestinians? That they are secure? That they can trust the Israelis with their security? That anyone in the world can trust the Israelis with Palestinian security? When we can see almost 20,000 killed, tens of thousands of casualties, including more than 7,000 children, an entire civic and civil infrastructure of 2 million people destroyed. So can we actually trust the Israelis with Palestinian future? Can we trust them with the West Bank future? We see what the settlers are doing day in, day out for the last so many years. Illegally occupying Palestinian land, stealing Palestinian land, attacking Palestinian houses. We see the Israeli army roaming every single city and refugee camp in the West Bank.
Marwan, as always, thank you very much indeed, Marwan Bashara. We appreciate it.